SS Edmund Fitzgerald sank in Lake Superior. All 29 crew members aboard died.
The Edmund Fitzgerald. Everyone thinks they know the story of the storm, but here's the catch: we didn't. This year in 2025, previously classified dive data was just released. And get this, it shows anomalies that experts can't explain. We're talking new images, sonar readings that defy physics, and evidence that the original storm story is not just wrong, it's a cover-up. The ship didn't just sink. What really happened on Lake Superior is far more shocking. The anomaly that breaks history. For 50 long years, the sinking of the SS Edmund Fitzgerald was the Great Lakes' most tragic and enduring ghost story. The legend was carved in stone. We all knew it. On November 10, 1975, a monster storm, a witch of November, swallowed the ship and all 29 of its crew. The winds were hurricane force. The waves were the size of 3-story buildings. The ship, the pride of the American side, simply vanished. We thought the only mystery left was how the storm did it. Did the hatch covers fail? Did it scrape a hidden shoal? Was it hit by 3 rogue waves that snapped it like a twig? For 5 decades, experts, sailors, and families have argued. It was a tragedy, yes, but we thought we understood the ingredients of that tragedy. Yeah, about that. In early 2025, a new expedition, a joint effort between NOAA, the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society, and a very, very quiet private maritime forensics group set out for the wreck site. This mission was different. They weren't just going to take pictures, they were bringing technology that sounds like science fiction. We're talking about a brand new class of ROV, a remote-operated vehicle called the Triton. This thing wasn't just carrying 4K cameras, it was armed with terahertz-level imaging sensors, allowing it to see microfractures in the steel. It had a state-of-the-art sub-bottom profiler, a sonar so powerful it could create a 3D map of the bedrock under the yards of mud and silt. And most importantly, it had a next-generation quantum dot magnetic anomaly detector, a sensor 1,000 times more sensitive than anything used before. They surveyed the wreck for 72 hours, and what they found was so shocking, so impossible, that the data was immediately classified by the Department of the Interior, citing ongoing investigation. For 10 months, nothing. Silence. The shipwreck community was buzzing. Why classify data on a 50-year-old wreck? What did they find? Then just weeks ago, under a massive Freedom of Information Act request, a summary of the findings was declassified, and to put it mildly, it has stunned everyone. The data doesn't just challenge the old theories, it incinerates them. So, here's the deal. Bombshell number 1. The break. We've all seen the pictures. The fitz is in 2 main pieces. The bow is upright, the stern is upside down. They are separated by about 170 feet of debris. The old theory was that the ship snapped in half under stress, like a ruler bent too far. The new 2025 high-definition images show something else entirely. The break isn't a snap, it's a cut. Metallurgists looking at the terahertz scans are baffled. The steel on the edges of the break on both pieces of the ship shows evidence of being sheared and thermally warped. We're not talking about a little friction heat, we're talking about the steel being heated to over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to be cherry red and soft, and then instantly flash-cooled by the 34-degree water of Lake Superior. A wave can't do that. A wave is water. It can't generate the heat of a plasma torch. Stress can't do that. Even an internal boiler explosion, which was ruled out decades ago, wouldn't create this kind of surgical scorching along the entire line of the break. It looks less like a shipwreck and more like a giant invisible blowtorch cut the ship in half. But here's the catch. That wasn't even the most shocking part. Bombshell number 2, the magnetic ghost. The new quantum dot magnetometer was run over the wreck. As expected, the 700-foot-long steel ship lit up the sensors like a Christmas tree. But what most people don't realize is the readings were wrong. The bow section has a normal magnetic field, but the stern section, the entire upside-down back half of the Edmund Fitzgerald, has a reversed magnetic polarity. Let's be clear, This is not just weird, it's considered physically impossible by our current understanding. The back half of the ship is a giant, powerful magnet, but it's backwards. The ship's original magnetic signature, the one it got when it was built in the 1950s, has been completely erased and overwritten with a new, powerful field. Physicists who saw the data said this could only happen if the ship was subjected to a massive electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, on a scale that rivals a nuclear event. A force so strong it could instantly remagnetize over 7,000 tons of steel. This new declassified data proves one thing. The Edmund Fitzgerald was not just a victim of a storm, it was a victim of a high-energy event. And this evidence forces us to re-examine everything we thought we knew. We are holding our own. You cannot understand the raw shock of the 2025 data without first understanding the sheer confidence everyone had in the Edmund Fitzgerald. This wasn't just any ship, this was the Queen. When she was launched in 1958, bells rang and crowds of 15,000 people cheered. At 729 feet long and 75 feet wide, she was the largest ship on the Great Lakes period. A true marvel. She was built to be a workhorse, designed to haul taconite, pellets of iron ore from the mines in Minnesota to the steel mills near Detroit and Toledo. And she was a brute. She could carry over 26,000 tons of cargo, the equivalent of a freight train miles long. But what most people don't realize is that the mighty Fitz was also a luxury vessel. While the crew worked, the ship had accommodations for a handful of wealthy guests. We're talking about air-conditioned staterooms, a plush lounge, and a gourmet kitchen. Passengers paid top dollar to ride the Fitz, eat the best food on the lakes, and watch the crew work. She was a legend. She was a status symbol. She even had her own theme song that played from her speakers. And she was considered fast. Her 16-cylinder, 7,000 horsepower engines made her a greyhound, constantly breaking records for cargo hauls. To put it mildly, she was considered a rock, an unsinkable titan. Her captain, Ernest McSorley, was the perfect man for the job. He was 63 years old, a 30-year veteran of the lakes. He was a quiet, respected man who didn't take chances. His crew were all professionals, many of them spending their entire careers on the lakes. This was not a rookie crew, this was the A-team. So on November 9, 1975, when the Fitz loaded up with 26,116 tons of taconite in Superior, Wisconsin, it was just another day at the office. The weather forecast was bad. A nasty storm was brewing over the plains. But this was November. Bad weather was the job. Captain McSorley consulted with the captain of another ship, the Arthur M. Anderson, captained by Bernie Cooper. They were old friends. They agreed to travel together, taking a northern route across Lake Superior to stay in the lee of the Canadian shore, using the land to protect them from the worst of the winds. But this wasn't a nasty storm. This was down a monster. By the next day, November 10th, the storm had exploded. The National Weather Service upgraded the forecast not once, but twice. It was now a full-blown bomb cyclone. The winds, which were supposed to be strong, became hurricane force. We're talking sustained winds of over 80 miles per hour, with gusts hitting nearly 100. And the waves, Lake Superior is so big it acts like an ocean. The fetch, the distance the wind can blow over open water, was over 200 miles. This created a liquid nightmare. The Anderson reported rogue waves of 35 feet and higher. These weren't gentle rollers. These were moving walls of water, house-sized, that would crash down with enough force to shatter steel. The Fitzgerald and the Anderson were in the thick of it, fighting for their lives. Around 3:30 in the afternoon, the first sign of trouble. McSorley radioed the Anderson. His voice was calm. He reported a bad list. The ship was tilting. He said they'd lost some railing and, critically, a couple of vent covers. He also reported something terrifying for a captain. "My radar is out." He was blind. He asked the Anderson, which was about 10 miles behind him, to keep track of them. Even with all that, his pumps were handling the water. He was a pro. He wasn't panicking. For the next 4 hours, they pushed on into the snow and the freezing spray. The Anderson was getting hammered too, its own bow dipping underwater from the massive waves. They were just trying to get to the lee of Whitefish Bay, a safe haven. The last communication from the Edmund Fitzgerald came at approximately 7:10 that evening. The Anderson radioed to ask how they were doing in the storm. McSorley's final haunting words, "Still calm, still professional." We are holding our own. The crazy part is, 10 minutes later, the Anderson's radar operator watching the screen saw the Fitzgerald vanish. The blip representing a 700-foot steel ship just gone. It didn't fade. It wasn't a weak signal. It was theirs, and then it was not. There was no mayday, no distress flares, no final scream over the radio. The ship with 29 men was just erased. The search, hampered by the same storm, found nothing. A few days later, a sonar search found the wreck, 530 feet down in Canadian waters, broken in two. The way it was broken became the heart of the 50-year mystery. The 2025 data wrecks. Everything in the chaos after the sinking, everyone wanted one thing: an answer. How did the unsinkable ship vanish? How did 29 men disappear without a single cry for help? The investigation started, and so did the bitter 50-year-long argument. The first and most official theory came from the United States Coast Guard in 1977, and it was a bombshell. It blamed the crew. So here's the deal. The official report said the most probable cause was ineffective hatch closures. The Fitzgerald had 21 massive 54-foot-long steel hatch covers on its deck. These were held down by a series of 68 Kessner clamps each. The Coast Guard said the crew probably didn't clamp them down right. The giant 35-foot waves washed over the deck, water poured into the cargo holds, and the ship slowly lost its buoyancy. The bow dipped down, and the stress of the heavy, waterlogged front end just snapped the ship in two. To put it mildly, the entire maritime community hated this theory. They saw it as a slap in the face. They said Captain McSorley and his crew were pros. There was no way they would fail at such a basic, critical task. It felt like blaming the victims. And now the 2025 data proves they were right to be angry. The new high-definition footage from the Triton ROV got crystal-clear images of the hatch coamings, the metal rims the covers sit on. And get this, the data shows the clamps were damaged, but not from being loose. The steel around the clamps shows the same bizarre high-heat scorching and thermal warping found at the main break. The clamps weren't loose, they were blasted off. Whatever cut the ship in half also blasted the hatch covers. A wave can't do that. This wasn't a slow leak, it was a sudden, violent, high-energy event. The Coast Guard theory is officially dead. Okay, so what about the other big theory? This one was pushed by the sailors themselves, including Captain Cooper of the Anderson. They believed the Fitzgerald hit a shoal, an uncharted underwater mountain, specifically the 6-fathom shoal near Caribou Island. This theory made a lot of sense. The Fitzgerald was known to cut corners, and in the storm, McSorley might have strayed too close. The Anderson's crew swore they saw the Fitz pass right over the area where the shoal was supposed to be. The idea was the Fitz bottomed out, tearing a huge, fatal gash in its hull. It was taking on water for hours, and the crew just didn't know it until it was too late. This would explain the list McSorley reported. This was a solid professional-grade theory, and the 2025 data completely debunks it. The new sub-bottom profiler, the one that can see through the mud, was run along the Fitzgerald's entire final path. The sonar sliced through 50 years of silt, through the layers of history down to the bedrock, and it found nothing. It's flat. Flat mud, flat bedrock for miles. There is no shoal, there is no uncharted rock. It was a phantom. And the wreck itself, the new scans show the bottom of the hull, the bilge keel, has no gash damage. There are no scrape marks. The hull is intact right up until the part where it's scorched and sheared in half. The shoal theory is also officially dead. That leaves the third main theory, the most romantic, most dramatic one. The Three Sisters rogue waves. This is the one you hear in the songs. The idea is that the Fitz was hit by 3 monster waves, one after the other. The first wave, a wall of water, buried the bow. The second wave, right behind it, hit the middle of the ship, flooding the deck. And the third, final wave lifted the stern high into the air. For a split second, the middle of the 700-foot ship had no support. It was suspended between 2 waves. With the massive weight of the bow and stern, the ship just snapped. It's a plausible, terrifying, and completely valid theory of physics, and it was almost impossible to prove or disprove. Until now. The new 2025 data, with its magnetic and thermal anomalies, just throws this theory out the window. A wave is water. It's powerful, it's terrifying, but it is just water. A wave cannot melt steel. A wave cannot reverse the magnetic polarity of 7,000 tons of ore and steel. A wave cannot cut a ship in half with heat. For 50 years, we were arguing about the wrong things. We were arguing about clamps and rocks and waves. The truth revealed by this new secret data is so much stranger. If it wasn't the storm, the bottom, or the waves, what was it? What really tore the Fitz apart? This is where the story goes from a maritime tragedy to a genuine, chilling X-Files level mystery. The 2025 data is so new, so bizarre that experts are scrambling to build a new model of what happened. And all the new models are wild. Let's look closer at Anomaly 1, the 2,000-degree heat. We're not talking about a small fire. The new 4K footage, combined with the terahertz scans, shows the steel at the breakpoint was subjected to at least 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. What most people don't realize is, that's plasma-level heat. The break isn't a jagged tear like you'd expect from stress. It's a cut. It's almost surgical, like a giant invisible torch sliced the ship in half. Where did this heat come from? Lake Superior is one of the coldest bodies of water on Earth. In November, it's basically ice water. This anomaly has given birth to a new terrifying theory, the Lake Superior Triangle. Everyone's obsessed with the Bermuda Triangle, but for decades, sailors have talked about the Great Lakes Triangle. And Lake Superior is its dark heart. Hundreds of ships have vanished. A famous case, the Bannockburn, vanished in 1902 and was never found. Not a single piece of debris. What if there is a natural geological phenomenon on the lakebed, a plasma vent, or a methane chimney that under the immense pressure of a storm can erupt? What if the Fitzgerald at 7:10 p.m. sailed directly over one of these erupting vents? A column of superheated gas and plasma could have shot up from the lakebed, instantly boiling the water and slicing the ship in half from below. It would explain the heat. It would explain the lack of a mayday. It would be instant. But that's not the wildest theory. Now for Anomaly 2, the magnetic ghost. This is the one that has scientists completely stunned. A reversed magnetic polarity doesn't just happen. To do that to a 729-foot chunk of steel, you would need a massive electromagnetic pulse, an EMP. We're talking about a force that could instantly fry every piece of electronics on the ship. And what did Captain McSorley report in his second-to-last call? My radar is out.
Radar. And I'm taking on heavy speed over the deck. One of the worst heats. If I'm correct, you have 2 radars. They're both gone.
At the time, everyone assumed the storm just damaged the antenna. But what if it wasn't the wind? What if the entire electronic system of the Fitzgerald was fried by this pulse? This would also explain why the ship vanished from the Anderson's radar. An EMP can temporarily scramble the air, making a massive metal object just disappear from the screen. This has led to wild theory number 2, the Cold War weapon. Think about it. It's 1975, the height of the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union are both experimenting with beam weapons, with over-the-horizon radar, with technology that can disable enemy satellites and missiles. What if, and this is a big what if, the Fitzgerald was in the wrong place at the worst possible time? What if a secret U.S. military test from the nearby Keweenaw Peninsula went wrong? Or even scarier, what if a Soviet submarine hiding in the deep, unmappable canyons of Lake Superior was testing a new EMP weapon and hit the Fitz by accident? It would explain everything. The EMP would knock out the radar. The beam itself, a plasma-based weapon, would cut the ship in half. And the government? They would absolutely classify the data for 50 years or forever. The storm would be the perfect cover story, but the 2025 data found one more thing. Anomaly 3, the lakebed divots. The sub-bottom profiler, the machine that can see through the mud, found something else. It's not on the Fitzgerald. It's next to it. About 300 yards from the bow section, deep under the silt, the sonar found something. The The report is classified, but the declassified summary is chilling. It describes 3 massive equidistant disturbances in the bedrock. These aren't rocks. These aren't geological formations. The report describes them as impact divots or landing marks, as if something huge and impossibly heavy rested there. And get this, the magnetic field around these divots is also off the charts. This has spawned the wildest theory of all, the USO encounter. We've all heard of UFOs, but in the Navy they talk about USOs, unidentified submerged objects. For decades, reports of strange lights over Lake Superior have been common. Fishermen and sailors report seeing lights under the water moving at impossible speeds. What if the Fitzgerald didn't just stumble into a storm? What if it stumbled into something else? What if the divots on the lake bed are landing legs? What if the intense heat was a propulsion system? What if the EMP that knocked out McSorley's radar was a side effect? In this terrifying scenario, the Fitz is pushing through the storm, blind. A massive object which had been sitting on the lake bed suddenly activates. It rises from the mud 300 yards away. The energy from its engines, a plasma drive, a magnetic field, blasts the Fitzgerald. The EMP fries the electronics. The heat from the drive slices the hull. The ship, cut in 2, sinks in seconds, its crew having no idea what even hit them. It sounds like a movie. But the crazy part is, this wild theory is the only one that accounts for all 3 of the new impossible anomalies: the heat, the magnetism, and the footprints on the bottom of the lake. The mystery reopened. So here's the deal, let's put this all together. For 50 years, the legend of the Edmund Fitzgerald was a ghost story about the power of nature. It was a tale of man versus the elements. The Witch of November was the villain. The song cemented it. The reports confirmed it. The mystery was over. The newly declassified 2020 data proves that story is a lie. The storm was real. The waves were real. The wind was real. But they were not the cause. They were just the setting. They were the camouflage that hid the real event. What did happen? What force on this planet can slice a 700-foot steel ship in half with plasma-level heat? What force can blast it with a focused EMP so powerful it reverses its magnetic field? And what left 3 massive equidistant footprints in the bedrock 500 feet below the surface? Experts are stumped, and that's putting it lightly. People are watching this footage looking for a mystery, and for 50 years the mystery was which theory is right. Now we know none of them were right. The real mystery is so much bigger, so much stranger. Are we missing a key detail? The thing is, this information changes the history of the Great Lakes. It means there is a force in Lake Superior, a geological one, a military one, or something else, that is unbelievably powerful and completely unknown. Is this even real? Could the data be faked? Why would a government agency release data, even a summary, that opens up this can of worms? Is this a soft disclosure, a way of preparing us for a truth we aren't ready for? Or did it all happen overnight? Was this a one-time thing? We have to look at this with new eyes. The 29 men on that ship weren't just lost to a storm, they were witnesses to something. Something that happened in a flash. Something that left behind impossible high-tech clues. The Edmund Fitzgerald is a memorial. The wreck is a grave, and it should be respected. But the mystery of the Fitz, thanks to this new 2025 data, is no longer a ghost story. It's an active, unsolved case, and the evidence is pointing in a direction that is truly terrifying. We thought we were looking for the solution to a 50-year-old puzzle, but it turns out we've just found a brand new one. The new data proves the storm theory is done. So what really waits in that dark, cold water? And has it happened again? Let us know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe for more hidden truths.